So I guess my story, I have been raised in this my entire life. Although it's weird because neither of my parents were raised in like a Baptist home. Like my mom's family were like Lutheran and they would like go to church on holidays and like she was obviously like confirmed in the church and stuff like that. And then my dad's family, like they were also Lutheran and they would go to church anytime kind of like the doors were open, but they were not hardcore, like they were not like hardcore whatever. Um and then I think both my parents like left the church at some point. And my mom started dating someone who was a Christian and but like not IFB, just like a normal Christian, like what I would say I am now. Like didn't believe in crazy dress codes, didn't believe in like women only were good for making babies and taking care of the house.
How
And
old
so
were you at this
then
point?
oh, I wasn't even born yet. I'm just
Oh,
giving like
okay. Oh,
context
wow.
or I don't know how my family got to the point that they did because like their first model of Christianity wasn't like that. Like and then my parents started dating, but they broke up. And then my parents started dating and my mom was like, "I'm not going to marry you unless you're a Christian." So then my dad was like, "No, I want to be with you. I'll get saved." And so then the church that they lived like we went to in Kansas, it was a Baptist church, but it wasn't IFB. So I'm not really sure like where they got the IFB from. But so I was in it my entire life and I didn't know anything different. Like I remember when we were little, we were allowed to wear like shorts and stuff like that. And I think really when we moved to Connecticut, we got like they started the church we went to was far more like independent Baptist. And I remember being like 5 or 6 at VBS and the pastor like brought out a chainsaw wearing like a horrible mask and it was like some kind of salvation message to children. Like I was super traumatized. But like that's normal, I guess. And then so growing up, like I was always disciplined. I won't go into too much of that right now, but like always disciplined, very strict household. Then we moved to Georgia when I was like 6, I think. I just turned 6. And we went to a normal church. Like we were allowed to wear shorts and pants and like I love the Christian school that we went to. This is where I had the best youth pastor. Y'all can say what you want, but I love this man and his family. He is not creepy. Shout out to Coach because he was the best. And like it was like normal Christianity. It was like not culty. And then my parents left that church over something. I don't remember why. I don't know why they left the church. And I don't know how they met these people, but they had met this pastor who used to be a pastor or something like that. And then they started like this home church and they were IFB. And I remember like everything in our like lives changed. Like no longer could we wear shorts or pants, no longer could we swim with the opposite gender. Like I think I was probably like 8 or 9 at this point, probably, maybe. And then so we got pulled out of that school, which I love so much. Shout out to BBCS because they're my fave. And then my mom let this lady, the pastor's wife, homeschool us because she used to be a teacher. Like she went to Bob Jones and no, she went to Pensacola, I think. But anyways, and so then like this little church started growing, but like very like IFB, like very yell from the pulpit, scream, hellfire, brimstone, like children should be seen and not heard, women are barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, like all those kinds of things. And then I think that's really like how we got like hardcore into it. And then like my parents were like, we're never looking back. And so my dad was gone a lot growing up because I mean like global wear and tear. And so there's a lot of stuff that happened when he was gone that like he didn't hear about or see and stuff like that. And so then we moved to Missouri because my dad retired. So we moved and then we got put into Maranatha and obviously attended Maranatha. And we all know how traumatic and super fun that was. And my parents were strict. Like, I don't know how strict TJ's parents were, but Kaylee can attest to how strict my parents were, I think. she's like, I mean, you said before, Kayla, that your mom used to threaten you with coming to my house if you didn't.
Well,
and so even
I think that your mom had a lot to do with me ending up in the facility that I ended up in too.
100%, which is
Yeah.
wild. It's and like my dad did the majority of the disciplining, but like if my mom didn't feel like he was doing a good job, like she would take over.
Yeah.
And basically, like, I don't know how y'all were disciplined, but like mine was like, if you cry or if you move, you got more. Like you would go like round for round. Like if you didn't say sorry and you weren't sorry enough, or if you didn't, it was just not a great time to be alive. And then my parents were super strict. Like I wasn't allowed to listen to the radio. I wasn't allowed to listen to like, I remember I used to like in junior high, I think not junior high. I think, yeah, maybe high school, I used to like get the home phone and like dial unknown into like 989 the fort. And I used to request songs that I would hear at school from you and Sarah. And then I would give them a fake name so they weren't like, just in case my parents found me listening to the radio.
We need to have Sarah on too. Oh yeah.
You what?
We need to have Sarah come on.
Yeah. And so
I'd love to corrupt you. It was our favorite thing.
You guys really did. Listen, yes. I remember the first time I watched a PG-13 movie was at one of y'all's houses.
Dynamite. Oh my God. Are you kidding?
And like, okay, but that's how strict my parents were. Like, we couldn't watch anything more than PG. I got in trouble at 15 years old for having a High School Musical CD and lying about it because that music was too inappropriate.
Wow.
I mean, should you lie to your parents? No, but also it was a CD. So anyways,
I have just one vivid memory of like me and you sitting in the back seat of your mom's car and our moms both in the front seat. And I think I was in trouble. No, we were both in trouble. I don't know what we did.
I don't know. I blocked out most of my childhood. So
and my mom was sitting there like talking to me. And it was like, why can't she was like comparing us. We got compared a lot. But then your mom jumped in and she was like, no. And we were just sitting back there like, what?
What did we do? Do you remember?
We were just looking at each other and like, but I could tell that was a more normal thing. I think than it had been for me. For me, it was like startling to be compared to you. I was like really struggling with that in the moment, but the like tone of the conversation, was definitely not something I had like totally seen before, And
there was a lot of yelling for sure. It was a super fun time. And like they were just so controlling about everything. And then we left Maranatha, the church and the school, because one of the boys in high school, because the IFB feels like they need to be everyone's savior, and so they would take in kids at the public schools kicked out for very good reasons. Like these kids got kicked out of school, and we had someone in the school that had been kicked out, and he did some inappropriate things, and the school didn't believe me. And like that one time, like my dad had my back. So my parents got mad and they left, rightfully so. Like Pastor Carnahan can get wrecked. I don't care. And so then my parents found another church in Rolla, Landmark Baptist Church. And that was even like stricter than Maranatha was. Like they ran in the same circles. Like I think the pastor out of there had like originally been at Tabernacle. I think that's where he grew up. And then he started another church in Rolla.
What was the pastor's name?
Darren Myers.
Darren Myers. Yeah. All right. I remember him. Yeah. He was the music director at Tabernacle. Yes. The tall guy with glasses. Yeah.
I don't love them either. And so Landmark was even stricter. But we didn't go to the school. We just went to the church. And so I remember like we were driving half an hour-ish. Like every time the doors were open, we would be in church. And the youth group that we were in, I just remember it being super toxic. And like we had a pregnant girl come to church and like they made her like sit by herself and like made a big deal about it. And then like I think when we went to Landmark is when I really started to realize that like things were not right, because I was like, your actions don't match with what's in the Bible. Like Jesus didn't treat people poorly. Like he went and like sat with the sinners. Like he went and like did the work instead of just like talking about it. And so then obviously we went to lots of youth conferences and like at all these quote colleges. And yeah, so I don't probably beating a horse to death here, but anyways, played volleyball for them because, you know, the only two sports we can play are volleyball and basketball. Wore hideous culottes while doing it. And so went to Landmark, and then we were homeschooled the rest of high school. And we weren't allowed to have any friends that weren't outside of the church. I don't know how y'all's families were. So all of our friends were there. And then I got kicked out at 18 for having a Facebook behind my parents' back at 18. I'd already graduated high school. And I was like talking to someone long distance that we had gone to elementary school with. And so my parents were like, if you don't want to obey the rules, you can get out. And I was like, I don't have anywhere to go. And they're like, well, we don't care. Like, you want to follow the rules. So I remember my mom took me to the cell phone store to get a cell phone because I wasn't allowed to have a cell phone. And then I'd happened to meet a girl while I was volunteering who I met her. She was volunteering, and when this all went down, I remember calling her, and I didn't have a place to go, so I moved in with somebody random, and like moved in with a bunch of dudes who just come back from Afghanistan. So like my parents would rather have their child hanging out with a bunch of combat vets than just like letting her have a Facebook. So I didn't talk to my parents for a while, and I went through like a year of just not super fun things. And then one day I was like, I should probably go to college, but nowhere would really accept like a high school diploma. And I did from like a homeschool one. And so I didn't know like how like GEDs and stuff like that worked. And so there was a Christian college, Clearwater. And I was like pissed at God for a long time. And I was like, is Christianity even real? Like, because all I'd known was like the IFB Christianity. Mm-hmm. And I was like, there's no way like that any of this is right. Like, I see the hypocrisy. Like, I mean, for all reasons we'll discuss in, you know, later episodes about niches within the IFB. But and then went there, and I was like, wait, I can be a normal Christian? Like, I can wear pants, and I don't have to read the King James Version, and I can listen to contemporary Christian music. And I was like, what is this? And so that's kind of where I like, I don't want to say I like started deconstructing what I had been raised, because it didn't match with like what I was seeing in the Bible. And so anyway, but I remember when I left the IFB, people were like, we're praying for you, like, come back anytime. And I was like, and I didn't realize for a long time, because I didn't see like how we were raised as abuse, but the older I got, the more I was like, that's not normal. And I'd reconnected with a super kind lady who had gone to church with us, and she apologized for being so mean, and she like validated everything that I thought. And the more I talked to her, the more I like remembered stuff. And she said that like going back to like the discipline, like the crazy discipline, like one time like the Pastor Myers preached a sermon and was like red, white, and bruised, and it was like a Memorial Day or July 4th themed message, and it was talking about how he laid the stripes and like his son saw the stars, like super things that are just horrible. And so the more I talk to people about like, you know, what, like, you know, similar to the Duggar family and the IFB and like these fake churches and colleges, and they're not fake. I mean, they exist, right? But the more I'm just like, this is not okay. Like, people should not be like, this should not be allowed. Like, parents have the right to raise their children, but like abuse should never be like in the name, like you can't abuse children in the name of God or in any religion or whatever. So anyway, so and so it's been a long like deconstructing of like what I feel like I was brainwashed with as a child to like, what do I actually believe, and how does that like correspond with what I think is right in the world and what that looks like. So it's been like an interesting journey, because like I watched my sister parent her kids, and she's an incredible mom. And she does things so differently from how we did it. And she stands up to my parents, which is huge. And I don't speak to my parents. But all of my family, like my extended family, is very supportive of me and like the way I'm living my life, like a normal person, like that I don't talk to them, like they're fine with it. I have really great people in my life that I would say are my family, that have just been like a huge, like just a steady place to be like, okay, that's home. Like I know that no matter what I do or how I show up in life, like they'll always love me. Like they'll always support me, like that kind of thing. So that's a little bit more about my story. But I'm definitely still a Christian. I feel like I can look back at my life and see God work in some pretty cool ways. But I definitely don't believe what the IFB does. So yeah, so that's probably, I would say that's my story. I don't know if I missed anything.
What are your goals for the podcast?
Oh, my goals for the podcast? I just don't want people to feel like they're alone. And I think sometimes like there's such polarizing views on stuff that like I want it to be a place where people can identify with something from each of us. Like maybe they are still on their journey and they're a Christian still, like, and that's okay too. Like maybe they don't see any evidence in the Bible and they're atheists, and like that's fine too. Like everyone's on their own journey, right? And I think that I just want people to feel less alone, or like, oh wait, that happened to me too. Like I get it. Like they're not alone. Everyone goes through it, and like it's okay to process it and deconstruct how you need to. And there's no right or wrong way to work through it.